Good to see the number of audiences that are joining in already. I think we're barely like 2 minutes into the webinar. All right, let me just quickly enable the chat for you guys so that we can have some activity in the chats. Great. So good afternoon, everyone. I hope my voice is audible and clear. You can give me a quick yes or no. Everyone, good afternoon. Okay, Mr. Selva Kumar raises his hands. Yeah. Good afternoon, Mr. Churita, Mr. Dheeraj. All right. Okay. Mr. Kamlesh, Mr. Umesh, Mr. Nageshwar Rao. I see some repeat names. Good to see some repeat audience here with us. Yeah, Mr. Selvakumar, if there's anything you can let me know in chat. Very good afternoon, Mr. Ravi, Mr. Nagesh, Mr. Hari. All right, great. So we'll be starting off in about 2 to 3 minutes. I think I'm confident we'll have more audience as we keep going. I already have our renowned speaker with us, Mr. Akela. Okay, so before we start off, anyway, like I said, I will start in about 2 minutes. I would like to know what is the expectation from today's session. Are you aware of the concept reverse charge mechanism and what you would like to hear out from Mr. Akela? This is something that I'd like to see. You can use the chat for entering your inputs. Very good afternoon, Mr. Gurumurthy, Mr. Imran. All right. Also, audience, I hope my screen is visible to all. Okay, great. Okay. So as I was saying, I'll just repeat it again. I would like to know what is this, what is it that you're expecting from today's webinar regarding RCM list and applicability. Okay. Okay, Ms. Lakshmi. Good afternoon, Mr. Manoj. All right, interesting. So I'd like to mention that we will also have some interactive polls during the webinar. And aside that, I think the highlight of this webinar is if we have repeat audience here, obviously you all know that Mr. Akela has always been proactive in answering any GST questions thrown to him. So we will obviously have that as well today over the last 15 to 20 minutes. So if there's any questions you have, you can directly ask Mr. Akela. We'll be able to facilitate that and take up the questions. Okay, so I think on that note, we can get started. Mr. Akela, can we will get started, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So once again, very good afternoon to everyone. Before we start off, I'd like to introduce myself. I am Siddharth Nandakumar. I handle product marketing at Web Solutions, and I will also be your moderator for the day. So today, the topic, as you all know, is going to be simplifying reverse charge mechanism under GST. This is what it's going to be. Now, there are also a lot of subtopics. I'm sure if the ones who had registered would have gone across the mail. You have a bunch of things that will be covered under RCM itself today. So we will find out what that is once I give it over to Mr. Akela. So let's move forward. Before we hand it over to Mr. Akela and the topic itself, I'd like to run you through a quick, very short company intro. Now, we are Web Solutions Limited. In fact, we were not a separate company back in prior to 2000. We were, in fact, part of Wipro itself. We were called Wipro E-Peripherals, and we were the peripherals division manufacturing of the company. Now, what peripherals ideally means is, assume you have printers, okay? You need certain components for the printers to run, right? Like cartridges, toners, etc. That is something that we were taking care of. Aside that, we were also very well known for manufacturing DMPs, that is dot matrix printers. But this was all great until 2000. The company decided to become a separate entity due to various internal reasons. And from there on, Web Solutions, as we know today, has multiple solution offerings. We have diversified in various arrays of the industry itself. We have digital solution offerings. We have our signature managed print services, obviously. We also have a device monitoring solution with the MPS service itself. We also are authorized distributor for Ricoh Japan as well. And our expertise also extends to the retail business as well. Now, these are a quick few points on a core, rather, I would say core highlights of our company. We have close to 23 years of industry experience. Once the company became a separate entity, we have close to 534 enterprise customers as of today. And most importantly, we are present in over 2,000 locations in India. That is, we have deployed in 2,000 plus service locations. Moving on. Now, let me quickly explain what each of our solutions have to offer for you. Now, managed print services, as the name suggests, it means we manage your print. As simple as that, okay? What that means is assume that you have about 100 or 150 printer requirement. We will be able to offer you that. We will also take care of your existing, assume 50, 60 printers that you have, and we will handle your entire printer network. Now, the most common challenge for people who are managing multiple printers from different locations is making sure that they don't have downtime, making sure they work perfectly, what is their toner level, cartridge level, all of that. All this is taken care by us. We also have a cutting edge solution called Fluid Map, which basically means a device monitoring solution that is installed in your network. And on that note, you might also ask me, how is it that you are charging me? We will not charge you for the printers. We charge you for the service. What that means is based on the number of papers you print, we will charge you on that basis on a periodic, let's say quarterly or monthly or annually, that can be decided. So that is on the MPS end. We are also India's #1 MPS company. Now, moving to the second one, that is digital transformation solutions. I will explain as we move forward. Now, let me go to that in the next slide. What we have here is intelligent office automation solutions. In simple terms, basically, we offer Ricoh automation printers on our portfolio as well. Now, what we have here is we have about 10, 15 Ricoh printers on our portfolio, which we'll be able to take care of. And we have two different kinds of printers, that is single function, which only prints, and multifunction, where you will also be able to scan. Let's move to serial number 3, which is something very relevant to the audience here today, that is GST. Now, we also have a one-stop, one-window solution, which takes care of your filing, reconciliation, e-way bill generation, e-invoicing automation. All of this is taken care by our platform. We also have very custom-built reports for your requirements, wherein you can generate reports based on a specific period of time. And we also hold the license from the government itself, that is GSP. We are a GST Suvidha provider as well. And moving to DMS, what we do here is document management solutions. The idea here is we have a document management solution with which we will be able to basically store documents on the go. It works something like your Google Drive or OneDrive, but the highlight here is we have a workflow automation engine built onto the platform, which will help you with various business process automation. Even for your finance team, your legal team, your HR team, all this can be done completely on our platform. And lastly, I will not focus here much. We have a retail billing solution branch of our business as well, wherein we provide POS machines, your billing printers that you would have seen in jewelry stores, departmental stores. We also tend to that side of the business. So that is it on the company intro. This is a quick view of our clients. We have various clients from different industry verticals. Okay, so that's it on the company intro. Thank you so much for your patience. Now, we will obviously not be showing a demo as such of our GST solution, but I do believe that there might be some of them who might be interested in our platform itself. So I'd like to quickly launch a poll to understand if you are exploring any GST or managed GST solutions at the moment. What this means is, based on your input, our team will be able to provide you a free demo of our GST solution to just show you what we have on offer. And based on your interest, we'll be able to take it forward. We'll also be able to arrange the demo based on your availability. So I will leave this poll on for the next 1 minute and I will take it down. Thank you. Okay, I think this is great. Let me end the poll. Great. Thank you, audience. Thank you for your inputs. Audience, I'd also like to mention that, as I already mentioned earlier, your questions can be put on chat or Q&A. We will surely take it up after the presentation. So Mr. Akela will be more than happy to answer to any of your GST or RCM related queries. We will do that right after the presentation. So thank you for your inputs. I will move forward. Without any further ado, let me introduce our speaker for the day, Mr. Akela A.S. Prakasha Rao. In fact, I believe I have lost count in the number of webinars I've been doing with Mr. Akela, sir. I truly don't remember. There was a time where I actually had a count, but now I don't. Let me introduce him for the nth time. Mr. Akela is an independent indirect tax advocate. He graduated in 1989 from BITS Pilani in electrical and electronics engineering. He's also a gold medal holder who completed LLB from Andhra University in the year 2001. Mr. Akela comes as a certified fraud examiner as well, but currently not active in this field. His previous stints, that is his work experience, he's worked in CBIC from 1994 to 2008. He's also worked for KPMG, Bangalore from 2008 to 13. His other major stints were with Toyota Kirloskar Motor Bidadi from the year 2013 to 2016. And lastly, Biocon from the year 2016 to 2021. He is also a member of various indirect tax committees of trade bodies like BCCI, CII, FICCI, and so on. Well, aside doing webinars, he also is an active article writer in various forums like TIOL, Tax Sutra on various tax issues. Mr. Akela comes with more than 28 years of experience in the field of indirect taxes with exposure in government, consultancy, and industries like auto and pharma. He has hands-on experience in GST, customs, FTP, SEZ, central and state excise, service tax, VAT, so on and so forth. Mr. Akela is currently practicing as an indirect tax advocate, assisting a large number of clients on all aspects of indirect taxes at all levels. I take absolute pleasure in introducing him on yet another webinar with us. I'm sure the audience is looking forward to directly hearing from you, sir. Now, before I hand it over to Mr. Akela, I'd also like to mention that I'd stress on the fact that he's also a consultant, which means if you have any sort of GST necessities that you're looking at, areas of pain points that you're trying to address, feel free to reach out to Mr. Akela. Mr. Akela, over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Siddharth, for those introductory words. And a couple of points before I embark on the topic for the day. One, that there is a hard stop for this webinar at 4:30 today. Hence, you have to bear with me that I may not be able to take up all the queries of you if there are too many. But certainly what I would like to do is that if you post your queries in the Q&A, then it will help. My contact and email details will be, you can get it at the end of the session. Siddharth will share, or it will be displayed on the screen also. And yeah, and then all your questions, if you can type in the Q&A chat box, then it will help. Because if I am not able to answer it live while doing the session, I can type the answers so that you can read it. And if there is something which is left out, that we will reach out to you later at the end of the webinar, and then we will try to send you the answers through mail. That's not an issue. So coming to the today's session, that I just wanted to brief you that what is this reverse charge mechanism. So a little bit of history that we should understand, because it is one tax which normally people hate a lot. Though it's very easy for making a payment, but it has got a lot of pains in it. But why at all it has been introduced, that we need to understand a little bit of history, and how it has been levied in the previous tax regimes also we need to understand. in whatever tax regimes it is there, and then how it is now currently in the GST, which is of interest for us. And lastly, that what are the compliances and the clarifications that we have. And in the end, that I will be taking your Q&A also, right? So next slide, please. So a German businessman, W.B. Siemens, and an American economist, Thomas S. Adams, first thought of the concept of value-added tax to curb the cascading effect of indirect taxes, and which aimed at an efficient system based on consumption at the destination. That's how the consumption-based tax has evolved in the world. Destination-based mandates that the exporting country cannot charge VAT on its exports, so that the destination of consumption, that is the importing country where the goods shall be consumed, charges its own VAT on the last sale to a consumer. So origin-based taxation, on the other hand, ensures that the consumers in different countries and the jurisdictions are on a level playing field. Scamsters are aware of the exports have to be zero rated, since the taxation of the VAT is destination-based tax. So the concept of DBT, while ensuring fairness of competition to all the producers located outside the jurisdiction, worked in favor of these scamsters. So this is the basis that why reverse charge has been conceptualized. So it was introduced in the year 1993, and the tax was to be deposited by the importer himself with the customs authorities before the goods release, thus compelling the importer to comply with the law in order to get a set-off of tax so paid by him under RCA mechanism at the first point itself. So you can see that customs has got the origin for this reverse charge mechanism. So importer, being the person who is receiving the goods, he is the person who is paying it in the first instance, and whatever components of the import duty that are eligible for him as an input credit, that he is availing. So that's how it has got its own origins in customs law. Next slide, please. Central government has already introduced the system of tax collection at verifiable source rather than through unverifiable source under the income tax law. That is called TDS. So even in the income tax law also, you have got something called tax reduction at source. So the system was successful enough to contribute to the foundation of RCM. So there also in income tax, you can see that there is a concept called reverse charge mechanism. So in the previous era of excise also, we have got the reverse charge mechanism in the form of CVD, as if he was the manufacturer of the imported goods, but the importer used it to make the payment of CVD, which is equal to the central excise duty that is leviable on the goods if they are manufactured in India. But the credit of CVD paid is available to the importer just like any domestic manufacturer. So RCM on imported goods served a dual purpose of curbing the carousel fraud as well as ensuring the domestic equity. So you might have come across the word carousel fraud. If not, then please Google it, that you will get to know. It's a very interesting case. So in Finance Act 1996, the legislature has sought to cast the tax net much wider, and it amended certain provisions of the Finance Act 1994, which governs the service tax regime. And thereafter, the rules which had originally been framed in 94 were also amended. So section 68(1)(a) in particular was introduced to initiate the concept of reverse charge mechanism, including on the services of GTA. So that is the first service under the service tax law which introduced the RCA mechanism to us. Next slide, please. See, the Supreme Court in the Lagu Udyoga Bharati and others versus Union of India has discussed at length on the provisions of this mechanism, and it had found serious faults in the levy and quashed the rules of the service tax rules 1994. It said that this levy itself is ultra vires the act. So that's how that levy received a setback. But in the year 2004, the then Union Finance Minister Chidambaram reintroduced the RCM in a revamped way, prospecting the intent of legislation to collect the tax from persons who received the services by notification 36 of 2004 service tax, this time by virtue of section 68(2), which has been introduced by amending the Finance Act 1998 to vest the powers to the central government. So from this time onwards, what has happened? The recipient of the services was made liable to pay the tax and subsequently to avail the credit thereon if it is eligible in his hands. So these are the history that is behind the reverse charge mechanism that we are able to see today. So why goods transport agencies were subjected to reverse charge? Because they are unorganized sector. So most of the people who are operating in the sector are not literate people. They cannot undertake the compliances which are cast under the tax laws. For these reasons, the government cannot forego the revenue from the sector because it is one of the very prospective sectors for the government to tax. So for that reason, the government has come out with this concept of reverse charge mechanism, where the service recipient is the person who will be responsible for paying the tax, so that the sector is taxed by the government. At the same time, there is no pain on the service providers who are illiterate. So that's how the concept has come. But wherever the government has found that there can be potential problem for continuing with the forward charge, the government has taken shelter under the reverse charge mechanism. Now the reverse charge mechanism has taken different shapes and different terms, like the way that you can see that it is there in the customs, it is there in the income tax law, it is there under the services. Now they have extended it to the goods also, which we'll come to know in the next slides. Next slide, please.
Yeah. Sir, I'll just quickly launch a poll for the audience.
Sure.
Now let's understand how many of them are actually have actually dealt with RCM at least once or twice. So, audience, this question is for you. Have you had any prior experience dealing with RCM under GST? Let us know. We'll leave this on for the next 1 minute. All right, great. So I will end the poll and I'll just share the results so that all of us can take a look at this. So, Akela sir, looks like we have, I mean, most of them who have answered this have mentioned that they have some prior experience. So, which is not bad, right? Actually.
Yeah, that is the reason that there are queries also.
Correct, correct, correct. Yeah. Okay, great. All right, so we'll move forward, sir. I'll just
next slide.
Go to the next slide.
So, either way, the mechanism's legality again traveled to the apex court for once again in the Gujarat Ambuja case, Cements case. So there that they said this it is ultimately a question of policy which must be left to the legislative wisdom, and hence the challenge failed. That's how it has stuck to us. Next slide, please. So in Finance Act 2012, so they have introduced a new two-way control mechanism in the form of partial reverse charge in the service tax under the negative list, wherein both the service provider as well as the service recipient are made responsible independently for discharging the tax liability. So as many as 15 different services that the joint responsibility has been cast, and then there was another dimension to the mechanism, as the words service receiver were substituted with the words person other than the service receiver also. So it has expanded from being a normal reverse charge to a most aggressive and most proactive way to collect the tax. So it is a aggregator concept was introduced in order to cover the e-commerce operators also under reverse charge mechanism. So Uber cabs, the service provider is the car owner, while the actual recipient is the customer who travels in the cabs. However, Uber, the aggregator, is in prime position to control the activities of both the service provider and the service recipient. Hence, it was a smart decision to put the responsibility of service tax collection on Uber. So that's how that they have introduced the concept, and they have extended and expanded its scope over the period of time. Next slide, please. So levy under RCM, how and where it is. So RCM depends on the type of service. So this is one of the criteria, and it depends on the nature of supply and nature of the supplier. The second kind of an RCM is supplies by the unregistered persons supplying specified services, a two-way check, which is suspended mostly except for few categories of recipients. So this has not yet been operationalized as on date. So the taxation of unregistered dealers, reverse charge mechanism supplies up to 5,000 rupees per day has been provided by way of a notification. Utmost care should be taken while taking benefit under this notification, as exceeding the limit of 5,000 will trigger liability of full amount, including the first 5,000 rupees. So here, what I just wanted to tell you is unregistered dealers purchases, if the company is doing, then if each individual bill is less than 5,000 rupees, then this levy is not going to be applicable. Only in the case if it exceeds 5,000, then there can be an RCM. So this 9.4 has not yet been operationalized, but the 9.3, wherein that most of the RCM that we can see as on date are there, that it all depends on the nature of supply and the nature of supplier. So for RCM discharge, registration is compulsory. So if you are not required to take a registration under the GST otherwise, but you have taken any service which mandates you to pay under reverse charge mechanism, then certainly you have to register yourself only to discharge RCM liability. So a supplier cannot take ITC of GST paid on the goods or services used to make supplies on which the recipient is liable to pay the tax. So self-invoicing is necessary for recipients, as suppliers may not issue GST compliant invoice. So in RCM, the responsibility to generate the GST compliant invoice, which is going to be a self-invoice, is on the person who is receiving the services. Hence, a self-invoice is a must in for discharging the RCM, and that will be the document on which the ITC can be availed if eligible. These are certain things which we need to keep it in mind about the RCM under GST. Next slide, please. See, what are the compliances in respect of the RCM under GST that we have? As per section 31, read with rule 46, every tax invoice has to mention whether the tax in respect of supply in the invoice is payable on the RCM. Similarly, this also needs to be mentioned in the receipt voucher as well as refund voucher if tax is payable on reverse charge. Maintenance of accounts by the registered persons, they are supposed to keep and maintain records of all supplies attracting payment of RCM with them, and any amount payable under the RCM shall be paid by debiting the electronic cash ledger. So RCM is always payable only in cash, but not by using the input credit. And invoice level information in respect of all supplies attracting RCM rate-wise are to be furnished separately in the table 4B of your GSTR1. And advance paid for reverse charge supplies is also leviable to RCM. Next slide, please. Supplies of goods under reverse charge mechanism. So I told you that there are certain goods on which reverse charge mechanism applies, like cashew nuts, not shelled or peeled. Agriculture by any registered person, RCM is payable. BD wrapper leaves, again, the agriculturists are by any other persons. Tobacco leaves and supply of lottery, and then silk yarn, all these are subjected to RCM. Next slide, please. Yeah. So what are the different kinds of services which are subject to RCM? So any service supplied by any person who is located in a non-taxable territory to any person other than non-taxable online recipient. GTA, and then services supplied by an individual advocate, including a senior advocate, by way of representational service before any court, tribunal or authority, directly or indirectly to any business entity located in a taxable territory. So basically the legal services. Then services by the arbitration tribunal, then sponsorship services, and services supplied by the central government. So if you are in receipt of any services from the central government or state, then you are the person who is supposed to pay the tax under RCM. So what are the kind of services? Renting of immobile property by the government, and then services by the Department of Posts, parcels, life insurance, agency services, and then the services in relation to an aircraft, vessel, etc. So all these services which are rendered by the government, the recipient is supposed to pay the tax under RCM. Next slide, please. So then services supplied by director of a company or a body corporate. So on this service, very recently after the 53rd GST Council meeting, we have got certain kind of a clarity also. So if anybody is having any queries around it, I'll be happy to answer that. So it has been clarified there that in the capacity of a director, if he is rendering any services to the company, then only RCM is applicable and the company has to make the payment. But in his individual capacity, if the same person who happens to be the director, but the capacity in which he is rendering the services will be individual, then in that case, if forward charge is applicable, then it should be subjected to forward charge. Simply because that he happens to be a director, that you cannot say that all services given by him are under RCM. Only when he renders the service in the capacity of a director, RCM is applicable. So that clarification has been given in writing. And the services supplied by an insurance agent to any other person carrying the insurance business, services supplied by a recovery agent to a banking company or a financial institution or an NBFC, and the supply of authors, music composers, etc. Relating to the original literary work to the producers. So, and services supplied by a person located in non-taxable territory by way of transportation of goods by vessel from a place outside India to the customs station of clearance in India. So, all these services, RCM is applicable. Next slide, please. So, what are the points that you need to keep it in mind? There is no partial reverse charge mechanism applicable under the GST. Unlike in the negative tax regime in the service tax, wherein there is a joint responsibility in discharging the reverse charge mechanism, that in the GST, fortunately, as on date, they have not brought in the concept of partial reverse charge. So wherever the RCM is there, 100% of the tax has to be paid by the recipient if it is subject to RCM. And in case of B2B import of other services, tax shall be paid by the recipient of service. And in B2B import of goods, tax shall be paid by the recipient of the goods. That's how it is. So the rate of tax used to be the rate which is applicable on such goods or services. And GST compensation cess is also applicable on the reverse charge. And if the goods and services purchased in the exempted or nil rated, then no tax is payable under the RCM. Composition dealers are required to pay RCM at normal rates only and not at a composition rate. Any amount paid as reverse charge is allowed as input credit subject to the condition that credit is allowed in the normal circumstances to such business. So composition dealers are supposed to pay the tax, but they are not supposed to take the ITC thereon. Also, amount of GST under reverse charge. And so the net result is that minimum amount of GST payable in a tax period is the amount of reverse charge in that period. Advance paid for reverse charge supplies is also available to the GST, which I have clarified. So next slide, please. So there is a registration requirement. If a person only supplies goods and services on which GST is paid on a reverse charge basis, then such person is not required to take any registration, even if the turnover exceeds the specified limits. So a farmer selling cashew nuts to a trader is liable to pay the GST on RCM. So even if the farmer does crores of business, there is no need for him to go for a registration. So time of supply. Date on which the RCM tax is payable for the levy reverse charge under the GST. It is very important to ascertain the time of supply, as GST would be required to be deposited with the government within 20 days from the end of the month in which these services are provided. So this is very, very crucial. So the definition is there, and there is a confusion also, which we'll talk in the coming slides. Time of supply in case of supply of goods. So in the earliest point of time in case of goods is defined as the earliest of date of receipt or date of payment or date immediately after 30 days from the date of issue of invoice. And if it is not possible to determine the time of supply as per the above, then the time of supply shall be the date of entry in the books of accounts of the recipient. So earliest point of time among these that one should determine, and then he has to discharge the RCM liability, and this is applicable only in the case of supply of goods. Now we will come to the controversial topic of supply of service. Next slide, please. Yeah. Registration requirement. If a person only supplies goods and services on a GST is paid on reverse charge basis, this we have discussed. Time of supply. Next slide, please. I think there's a small repetition here in the slides.
Sir, yeah. It continues here.
Yeah. So, yeah, the time of supply in case of supply of services. So, earliest point of time, the date of payment, date immediately after 60 days from the date of issue of invoice. See, this is where the pain is. You need to understand, and many people are missing this, and they are being subjected to queries by the department. What it says that RCM is to be paid from on the earliest point of these two events. One, the date of payment. So date of payment of consideration to the service provider. Then date immediately after 60 days from the date of invoice. So sometimes it so happens that invoice has come on 1st of January to you. By 60 days, that somewhere around 1st or 2nd of March, 60 days period gets over. And then if the payment for the service has not happened, because otherwise the law says that any invoice you are supposed to make the payment within 180 days. But in the case of RCM, if you have not yet paid to the service provider, but RCM will trigger on the 61st day to you. So not many people are aware that such a kind of legal provision is also there in case of RCM for the receipt of services. So you have to be very careful when you have received any kind of a service on which RCM is applicable. Otherwise, what happens that this can be the issue. If it is not possible to determine the time of supply from the above two, then the date of entry in the books of accounts, date of payment, for the purpose of computation of date of supply, date of payment shall be earlier of the following: date on which payment is debited in this bank account, or date on which the recipient is entered. These are final details of it. But most pain point and the most ignored point is RCM is payable immediately after 60 days from the date of issue of invoice by the supplier. It is a very, very important point. So please take note of it and adjust your understanding, because that I could see that many people have missed this point. Yeah. Next slide, please. So some of the compliances in this, some confusions, whether any time limit applies for the payment of RCM. Yeah, RCM needs to be discharged by generating a self-invoice. Time limit, I told you that it is provided under the law, 60 days from the date of invoice for the services, and earliest day when you have recognized the payment in the books, receipt in the books, etc., we have dealt with. If there is a delay in generating the self-invoice and the payment of RCM, will there be any penal interest? The answer is yes, interest need to be paid for the delay. Whether ITC is claimable in the same month or in the subsequent month. This is a big debate going on in the market, saying that if I pay the RCM, whether immediately I can take the credit or I need to wait till the next month. See, legally there is no problem for you to avail the credit in the same month. But the only problem, you are making the payment in cash and you are availing the credit in the electronic credit ledger. So if you want to really track these things, it is always suggestible that you have a difference that you paid in this month and take the credit in the coming month, which is going to help you while doing the reconciliation. But if you are in a tearing hurry or short of the cash in your hand for discharging your output tax liability, yes, you can do it. But while doing the reconciliations, when you encounter the problem, you have to be careful. And if the RCM is not paid by the recipient, whether the supplier will be held responsible. See, you have made a supply on which you are supposed to pay, because it being an indirect tax, you are supposed to collect the tax and remit to the government. But because it is under RCM, you did not bother, but your recipient has not paid. So will you be held responsible? So there is no responsibility for you, provided that you have indicated that the supply is under RCM levy. So once you have made that on the face of invoice, then your responsibility ends, being a supplier. So whether a director giving services to a company has rental income also and is exceeding the SSA threshold in terms of its total turnover, so whether registration under GST is mandated, this is what I have explained. So the director, in the capacity of a director, when he renders services to the company, RCM is applicable. But the director in his individual capacity is offering a service like rental services to the company, then forward charge only will apply, and the registration and other things are subject to the other rules. So whether RCM can be paid in installments is another question. So there is no such option unless the time of supply has been recognized in installments as per the books. So because that RCM triggers the way that the books are reflecting the receipt of service, so installment payment comes in only when the service is also recognized in installments in the books. So that's how it is. I think there is a lot of debate which is happening in the back end on the GTA services and the ITC availability. So if somebody can pose this query in the Q&A, I'll be happy to answer. You can concentrate on the presentation rather than answering the your colleagues' questions during the webinar.
Right.
It will unnecessarily distract the others. Yeah, so I think that I'm coming to end of my presentation, and I will be happy to take the queries.
Absolutely.
Because that we are left with only 15 minutes more.
Correct. So,
we will get that.
Thank you, sir. So we'll get into the queries itself. I see quite some queries in the Q&A. So what
I'm picking up something from the chat box because the people are going little on this issue. I do not know what is exactly the problem that they are facing. When that ITC is available on the GTA services, is that the question?
Service provider
percentage of GST we need to pay under RCF against the GTA to take ITC. See, it is not that what percentage you pay on the GTA so that you will be entitled for an ITC. First of all, the service provider has to take a call whether he wants to charge it under the forward charge or the reverse charge. Because the law very clearly says that the service provider can give in writing to the department that his GTA services are going to be under forward charge or reverse charge. Once he decides it is going to be under the forward charge, then he will be charging it, and the recipient has to decide whether he is entitled for taking the credit or not, subject to the other conditions of ITC. But if he decides that it is going to be under the reverse charge, then the obligation casts on the recipient, then whether he can take the credit or not. So in that case also, with ITC, without ITC, the tax rates are different. So that is from the point of view of the service provider only, but not from the point of view of the service recipient. Hence, subject to your availability of the credit, that the recipient can take a call. But if it is under forward charge, then the credit will be eligible in your hands. Whether internal self-invoice is mandatory for RCM payment or payment proof is sufficient to take the GST ITC after the payment. No, an internal self-invoice is mandatory as per the law. May I know from which date it came to picture, please? Earlier, we used to pay 12%. I think it is in relation to the GTA. There is a long checkered history for this tax levy, 5% and 12%. I'm sorry, getting confused. At present, we need to pay 18% for GTA under RCM. There's no 18% under RCM. I think GTA can opt to pay GST at 5 without ITC. Yes, such option is also there for him. And 12 with ITC. We are taking services from local tempo like Chota Hathi, Aisha tractors. They are all not registered as GTA. However, are doing payment on monthly basis to these service providers and taking bill on monthly basis. Okay. Whether the service providers are falling under the category of GTA, we have to deposit GST under RCM. Yes, that you need to check. Credit available on RCM on taxi cab or not. It depends whether it is in relation to your business trip or not. If I pay now RCM on secondary employment along with interest and raise self-invoice now, see, it is not that when you are going to do this. It is that when you have recognized the services in the books. Because we have discussed what is the point of supply of the services. Earliest point of time of supply of services is the receipt of the service in the books and the payment, whichever is earlier that we told. So in the books, if you have already recognized the RCM, but you did not discharge the RCM liability, now you have taken a call to discharge it with applicable interest, then certainly, because there is no time limit for you for availing the credit under the RCM, because it all depends on the self-invoice only. Self-invoice date, then within the self-invoice date that you can take the credit. There is no bar, provided you pay the interest. Is RCM payable or listening charges? Listening charges per se, there is no service called as a listening charge. But if you can explain what is the nature of services, maybe that we can discuss that. As I think credit would not be available on RCM of taxi cab. Please confirm. I told you that in relation to the business, they will be available, otherwise not. In RCM, company has to bill on itself. It is not billing on itself. Yes, it is a self-invoice is what is called. If we miss to debit RCM, what is the interest percentage? It is the same percentage what you pay in case if you have not discharged your tax liability under forward charge. Self-invoicing not made in 22-23. Then ITC claim allowed or rejected by department during the audit. See, officially, if you ask me, not possible, but self-invoices do not require any e-invoicing mechanism. Hence, it is in your own interest, you generate the invoices for 22-23. But by now, I hope that you have taken the credit. Is RCM applicable on foreign trade fair services? We need to understand what is exactly the foreign fair trade services that you are talking about so that we can give you an answer. Okay, so I think all the discussion that is there in this, may I know from which date came. Yeah, I think I have answered all the queries in the chat box.
Chat is
so
done.
I think we should now take up the queries in the Q&A.
Yeah, sir, before you get into queries, I will need about a minute, sir, max to max.
Yeah,
so audience, again, thank you so much for being so engaged, very engaged and involved in the presentation itself. We do have another 10 minutes, but before that, I would like to quickly launch a poll, but not here. I would request all of you to open your chat, and I'm going to paste a link here, which will redirect you to our LinkedIn page. We have a live poll on RCM running right there. I request all of you to click on the link, go to that page, enter your poll, and come back here. I hope all of you are able to see the link. And for those who are not on that page, I will read out the question anyway. What information do you think is most crucial when determining whether a transaction is subject to RCM? Now, the options given here are nature of supply, threshold limit, type of recipient, and place of supply. So I think this would max to max take about 10 to 15 seconds for all of you. I request all of you to enter the polls and we can get back to the Q&A.
Please show interest in the polls because that shows that you are active. Otherwise, that for the sake of it, that you are attending the session without any kind of a participation from your end.
Okay, not bad. About 7 votes on that page. Okay. While that is still at it, I think once you're done with the voting, you can come back to this page. Now, audience, I'm going to the next page. Now, I'd like to take about 10 seconds here to introduce you to our new brand. So I'm sure most of you have been attending our webinars and for a long time, in fact, right? So we were known as Web. We are in fact evolving ourselves for the coming future. We are undergoing a complete brand shift, and I'd like to introduce you to show you a small sneak peek of what we have on offer. And you will be seeing a lot of new things in the coming days as well in our webinars itself. So let me play this video for you. All right. So that is a small snippet of our brand itself. We are undergoing a change and we will be known as WebSol moving forward. And our offerings also will have some new things to offer. More on that in the coming days. Okay. So let us take up the questions itself now. So Akela sir, we can go to the Q&A tab.
Yeah. Even paying RCM, can department reject ITC background, export without payment of tax, have accumulated ITC balance and refund request submitted? Sorry, I think that it is a confusing thing. See, when you have accumulated the input tax credit by paying forward as well as reverse charges, you will be having the credit in your hands and you must have done the exports under LUT mechanism. So, under LUT, refund can be avoided. If you have followed all the rules, then it should be allowed. It has got nothing to do with RCM. Even for the forward charge also, you will have an accumulation because you don't have any output tax liability because you are into exports. And if you have rendered your exports under LUT and then followed the proper procedure, within 2 years, you can apply for refund and you should be able to receive the refunds. If there is any kind of a challenge, then you let me know what exactly is the issue. Then we can answer it. Is RCM company has to bill on itself? See, it is not that company is billing on itself. It is called self-invoice, wherein that you have received a service on which that you are supposed to pay the tax. Hence, you will be generating an invoice as if that you are the service provider, and then you will be paying the tax thereon, and you will be accounting it, and that will be the document on which ITC can be taken. So, yes. For all RCMs, you are asking me to give an example, but it is not one. If for any RCM payment, you are supposed to generate an invoice because there should be a GST invoice, no, for you to ascertain how much amount that credit is eligible. So whatever the tax that you pay, that you have to reflect it in the invoice, and then you have to take the credit. That's how it is. Okay, then. The next question is RCM applicable to commission paid to insurance agents by the insurance company like LIC? Can commission paid by the insurance company to an insurance agent? RCM applicability does not come in because that insurance LIC is not a government. So I don't think that RCM will be applicable in such a scenario. Logistics forwarding company, is the RCM applicable for import services? I'm unable to understand what exactly it is. You are saying it is a logistics forwarding company. So what are the import of services? That will decide. But wherever import of services are there, then A2 payments will be there, and for that RCM will be applicable in the normal course. But if you have got any particular service category, then you let me know that I can clarify it further. So need clarification on import of services, RCM category, whether service is already taxed in other country, do we need to pay RCM again or any chance of exemption? Sir, when from the other country, somebody is rendering some services, then it will not be subjected to tax there in that country. Because what is he doing? That he is exporting the services to India. In India, you are receiving. So for him, it is export. For you, it is import. So for you, when it is an import, you are supposed to pay RCM. For him, when it is an export, I don't think that there is any export tax. So this kind of a scenario does not arise, Mr. Suresh. And then another question from you. Whether internal invoice mandatory, which I have already answered from one of other participants. And if director provides consulting advisory services to the company and issues GST invoice, then it is valid or not. Again, this has been answered. Director in his capacity as a director, if he gives any kind of an advisory, then there is no need for him to issue any GST invoice, but only he will be issuing an invoice for the consideration for which the company has to generate a self-invoice and pay RC. But the director in his individual capacity gives any kind of a consulting or advisory services to the company, then he can issue a GST invoice under forward charge. If he is not an advocate, then in such a scenario, forward charge only will be applicable and it will be valid only. Is RCM applicable on insurance commission? I think that this has been discussed. And then is RCM payable on URD to URD consultant and payment to office rent to URD? See, what is URD consultant means? Unregistered. He is a consultant who is not registered. If he is not registered, then you need not pay, because that URD concept is there only in the case of goods, but not in the case of services. So services, the liability is always cast on the forward charge only. If the service happens to be a legal service, like you are taking any service from me, I am not a registered person, but I am giving you legal services as an advocate. So when I give you an invoice, which is not a GST invoice, but I will tell you very clearly on the face of my invoice that this invoice is subject to reverse charge mechanism payment, then you have to pay under reverse charge. But for office rent and all, this is a normal forward charge. Hence, no reverse charge is applicable. Is RCM applicable on foreign trade fair services? We need some clarity on the nature of service that you are talking about. Indian company set up manufacturing service center outside India and related payment by India. In this case, RCM applicable. Sir, in this case, we need to understand many things. When you have set up a business, is it a project office? Is it a liaison office? You are saying manufacturing service center means it is a completely a separate setup under the local laws of that company. So whatever money that you are going to send there is going to be towards the investment in it. I don't think that there is any kind of a service in it. So RCM is not applicable. So I think that I have answered all the queries that are there in the Q&A box.
Yeah, sir. I think we can anyway take another 5 minutes because I see.
So there are a couple of discussions in this. Correct. RCM applicable for reimbursement salary paid by Japan to expat on the basis of monthly invoice received from Japan. See, if you are making any kind of an A2 payment, then you have to evaluate whether RCM is applicable or not. But as far as salaries are concerned, it is a debatable subject, sir. So you need to see the expat salaries, how the appointment letter is made, and then who is liable for making this payment, whether it is a pure transaction in money or there is a service element also that you need to see. Company appointed a person to promote sales and sales of the goods based on the sales and cash collections paying commission. Is RCM applicable? See, where is this person appointed? If he is appointed in India and he is working as a sales commission agent, I don't think that RCM is applicable in that case. Please go through some. Please throw some light on RCM applicability on goods which I have discussed. Interest 18%. Yes, it is available. The seating capacity of motor vehicle exceeds 13%. Yes. Company appointed a person, yeah, that they have answered. RCM will be reimbursement salary, yes, answered. Yeah, I think these questions, whatever is there in the chat box also that we were able to complete. So any other questions that you have got, anybody else? Because that we are having another 2 minutes as per Siddharth. If I am not hearing any, then I think it is time for us to say thank you. Thanks for your time in attending this session. Yes, it is useful that there are some queries we could answer. But if you are not satisfied with any of the answers that are given today, that you can certainly write to us that we will be available. I think Siddharth, that my mail ID and mobile number can be shared.
Yes,
That
sir.
if
Yes,
anybody
yes.
wants it, I am just typing it out here.
No, I will surely take care of that, sir, because I have to send a post-webinar mailer, right? So I will
Yeah,
tag your details, and I
done,
think,
done. So
yeah,
people can reach out to me, not an issue.
for sure, sir.
So
And I mean,
thanks.
yeah, I feel the topic really, brought in a lot of queries. So if the audience are really interested, we can surely do a follow-up session as well on this webinar.
Yeah, Manoj Bhavsar is having raised his hand. That is there any question that we need to answer?
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Manoj, would you like to directly interact with Mr. Akela? I'll be able to unmute you right away. Let me just try that. Okay, Mr. Manoj, you can unmute. Okay, same with Mr. Vincent. Do you have a question or
Okay,
something,
he
sir?
says Vincent is raised his hand.
Okay, let me just enable 1 minute. Mr. Vincent, you can unmute? Okay, looks like nothing, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, audience, thank you so much for your time, and Mr. Akila, thank you so much for for the flexibility and understanding, sir. Once again, thank you so much for the presentation and the efforts. I'm sure the audience had some things to take away from today's session. I will send out the presentation and loop you as well for any further queries.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
audience.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Akela.
Thanks.